Hello there. This is Cam. Cam has been a field tech with Enbridge for 13 years and has seen a lot of change throughout their career. They take pride in their work and ensure it's done as safely as possible. They always try to understand how new programs fit into their role. Let's take a moment to reintroduce Cam to hazard assessment at Enbridge. The first piece of the hazard assessment puzzle is hazard identification. When it comes to planning work, the first thing CAM should do is identify the hazards in their work scope and daily tasks. CAM may need to include subject matter experts from other departments, like electricians, engineers, or safety. Each hazard that CAM identifies needs to have a control tied to it to help protect CAM and their coworkers. Eliminating the hazard altogether would be even better. If a hazard can't be eliminated, then CAM should look at the next level control in what is known as the hierarchy of controls, engineering controls. Some engineering controls could be shoring in an excavation, air movers in a confined space, guards, barricades at heights, tools and other equipment. After engineering controls, CAM should look at administrative controls like job plans, procedures, P&IDs, JHAs, LOTO, and isolation forms and safe work permit. Training, technical trades, and H&S specific to the hazards or work. As a final control, CAM should identify the personal protective equipment beyond the basics of hard hat, safety glasses, and steel-toed boots. Additional PPE might be respiratory protection, fall restraints, or face shields. After considering what hazards they might be faced with, CAM then decides if a safe work permit is necessary for the work or if any other specialized permits are needed, like hot work, confined space, ground disturbance, asbestos, or energized electrical permits. For each work activity, there is a person accountable to make sure the work is completed safely. This person is known as the Enbridge representative, or simply the PIC, which stands for the person in charge. So what exactly is a PIC and what do they do? A PIC is an Enbridge employee or contractor that is competent to lead work and responsible to ensure all key activities are identified and completed properly. Some of the key hazard assessment activities are the work authorization, job hazard analysis, permitting, and field-level hazard assessments. If work is being performed by a contractor and is being managed by the project team, a work authorization is often used. This allows the area operations to give project oversight to a designated person from projects. Basically, it's turning control of the operational area over to projects for a bit. Before drafting a work authorization, the area operations will make sure that there is no other work happening that might introduce more hazards to workers. Operations also ensures the project team has been told about these identified hazards. Simply put, the work authorization gives projects the responsibility over an area, including passing information about the hazards and controls to those at the work front. How do the job hazard analysis, permitting, and field-level hazard assessments fit into the big picture? All of these tools are important pieces of the puzzle, so let's have a look at each of them. The job hazard analysis, often called the JHA, is meant to list the steps, hazards, and controls for a particular work scope. It's a written document that can be created and then reviewed for similar jobs over and over again. It's meant to tell workers what they can expect at each step in the work plan and how to protect themselves and others from harm. There's a library of JHAs that can be referenced, and if none exist for the work about to happen, then this is the perfect opportunity to create one that can be added to the library. If there is a JHA in the library, but it needs to be updated, workers can do so before beginning their work. The PIC and workers can both update existing JHAs for the work they will be performing. The Safe Work Permit is used to ensure that there is clear communication between the person in charge and the people performing the work. It's a very important communication tool to protect the safety of those involved in the work. The PIC is the person that issues a permit, but they can designate another person as the permit issuer, so long as that person accepts the responsibility that comes along with it, ensuring the hazards are under control and is willing to provide permission to those workers to perform work on or next to their operations. Safe work permits are meant to capture the type of work, the hazards of the site, the hazards the workers themselves might introduce, the mandatory controls, and any conditions that might restrict the work. Safe work permits are necessary for the following situations: all contracted work, Enbridge field operations employees performing listed tasks, but they don't apply to individuals working alone. Shutting down and/or isolation of equipment are required to complete the work unless there is a single isolation point or one individual working on the isolation. Working on or around an open system except for flushing, purging equipment, filter changes, sampling, orifice plate inspection work, working on equipment greater than 750V CAN or 600V USA, working upstream of the 480V main breaker, confined space entry, ground disturbance, critical lifts, hot work in hazardous or restricted areas with the following exceptions for employees that are driving vehicles through restricted areas, breaking low voltage connections in restricted areas, or work that involves using low voltage equipment such as voltmeters, laser alignment, and handheld vibration meters, analyzers, or cellular telephones. Looking for and work on pipeline anomalies. Work on leaks or leak sites. This is a pretty comprehensive list, so you can see how important the SWP is during operations and work execution. When the person in charge or Enbridge representative issues a safe work permit, it needs to be done with the person receiving the permit. This is an important conversation where the scope, length of work, hazards, and controls are all discussed. The permit can be captured and created using a web browser, mobile application, or when needed, a paper copy. All you need to do is follow the steps in the app or fill out the appropriate sections on the paper form. So Cam, you could be the area operations person that has been designated as the permit issuer. As a permit issuer, you would be responsible for ensuring that the live work area is safe from an operating perspective for expansion, shutdown, and maintenance projects to carry out activities, including hazardous gas or other operating hazards. Ensuring GTM equipment is safe to work on, is properly isolated, example blinded, locked out, and equipment status is documented on the Safe Work Permit and is communicated to the permit receiver. Reviewing the Safe Work Permit and JHA for relevant details specific to the job. Discussing with the PIC when changes are required to the specified controls and precautions or conditions that were agreed to on the Safe Work Permit. Contact the permit receiver to review and authorize any changes. Ensure references to safe work procedures are listed on the Safe Work Permit, example lockout tagout, confined space. Confirm the completeness and accuracy of the Safe Work Permit. Complete a site walkdown. Ensure the work area and equipment is left in a safe condition on completion of the work. Maintaining a head count. Manage sign-in-out for the facility. The person you issue the permit to, known as the permit receiver, would be expected to explain the job scope to the permit issuer and help the permit issuer to identify specific requirements. They would also be expected to ensure all provisions and requirements of the Safe Work Permit have been met before work begins. Review Safe Work Permit with all workers. Ensure the work is done in a safe manner to avoid injury to people, damage to equipment, or the environment. Ensure the work site is maintained in an orderly and safe condition while work is in progress. Ensure the work site is left in an orderly and safe condition at the end of the shift or on completion of the job. Ensure the job scope and job site remain within the conditions outlined on the permit. Accept the Safe Work Permit when conditions of the Safe Work Permit are revised. Return the Safe Work Permit to the permit issuer at job completion, assignment to another job, or expiration time, whichever comes first, and notify the permit issuer of the equipment status. Together, the permit issuer and permit receiver will determine if the permit conditions are met. If the conditions can't be verified as complete by the permit issuer, the permit conditions must be reviewed, updated, and implemented. When all conditions have been met, the permit issuer signs the Safe Work Permit as accepting responsibility that the work site has been inspected, all Safe Work Permit conditions have been met, and that work can commence after the persons doing the work have been fully briefed. The final piece of the hazard assessment puzzle is the Field Level Hazard Assessment, or FLHA. This is meant to be the final hazard assessment that the workers complete before starting work for the day. The FLHA should be completed at the work site just before starting work. It's the opportunity to identify any hazards that haven't been considered on the JHA. The FLHA is the spot to capture hazards like weather, ground conditions, focus, things like that. It's also an opportunity to conduct a hazard assessment if no JHA exists for the work being conducted and can be done individually or as a group performing the work. The FLHA will often spark conversation about muster points and emergency response procedures. A lot of what you've said is what happens leading up to work. What about when work is underway? Am I supposed to do a hazard assessment then too? The FLHA can be updated as things or conditions change during the course of work. It's a living document and is meant to be updated as needed. There's also an opportunity to update JHAs within the JHA library to make sure that they match how work is actually done in the field. The Enbridge representative also performs a work-in-progress field verification to ensure work is performed the way it was agreed to be performed. Every worker must stop work if they find it to be unsafe. All workers have the right and obligation to refuse and stop unsafe work. Throughout the job, the Enbridge representative will talk with team members to be sure they understand the job, provide feedback to workers, recognize team members for following the Safe Work Plan, policies, and procedures. If there are changes to the work, the Enbridge rep makes sure the work is performed according to what's on the Safe Work Permit. Bear in mind that when authorizing people for an existing Safe Work Permit, if, for example, the permit issuer and/or permit receiver becomes unavailable through an unplanned event, the permit is void. If the permit issuer plans to leave site in the duration of the permit, an alternate that has participated and signed the permit in the additional signatures required section when it was originally issued can assume the permit issuer's responsibilities. The alternate must sign in, out, and record time of day on the permit. The alternate must check the work site and equipment to ensure that the area and equipment is properly prepared, safe to work on, and conducts all necessary gas tests when assuming the responsibility. Remember that if the permit receiver leaves site, the permit is also void. If work has already started, all new workers must review the permit and sign the FLHA prior to entering the work area and starting work. Once the work is complete, but prior to returning back to operations, a Process Safety Startup, PSSR, needs to be completed for any intrusive work such as breaking of connection on electrical, instrumentation, mechanical, piping, fittings, flanges, etc. Temporary hose connections are exempt. There should be one PSSR per lockout/tagout. Removal of equipment or devices from service through system bypasses or isolation. The operations rep must ensure all tasks are complete and the PSSR has sign-off by all parties involved. Permit issuer, receiver must verify that work is complete and sign the Safe Work Permit to close out the permit. When complete, the Safe Work Permit documentation shall be closed and filed as described in Enbridge Records Retention Manual. For example, the Safe Work Permit and all associated documents and records are retained for a period of 2 years after completion and 10 years for work involving confined spaces and 10 years for asbestos. Once the permit issuer and receiver are content with the work performed, both will close the permit by signing the appropriate sections. I know that was a lot of information to take in, but I hope it helped explain how hazard assessment works at Enbridge. It definitely helps, but I want to make sure I'm doing it properly day to day. Where can I get more information or guidance if I need it? There's an entire e-site dedicated to hazard assessment. You can check that out by going to eLink and searching for ePermit under Team Sites. There you will find quick reference guides and links to the ePermit as well as on-demand how-to videos. You can also reach out to your local safety advisor to discuss how you fit into the hazard assessment program.